All right, here we are again. Good morning. Waiting room slowed to a trickle, so let's get moving. Sent out an overview agenda yesterday. Always happy for your comments and thoughts to change things. But what I'm hoping we can do is get some updates as per usual. And then I do want to have some time for the sheriff and Erica with community justice, and Ebony Clark, I don't think was able to join us this morning, but there's some work going on in East County. And I thought that would be a great opportunity to share some of that work. Community oversight work, some open time if we have it towards the end. Then we'll figure out, I think, our meeting cadence and really being thoughtful about whether we need to keep meeting weekly or whether it's something we should move to every other week or maybe once a month. There's been a lot of action completed, a lot of movement had. And so I just want to be thoughtful about that. So, okay. That's the goal for the day. Let's get grounded in the reality of why we're back here this morning, and I'd like to turn it over, Chief Lavelle, I think, to you. What updates do you have for today? And then we can take a moment and acknowledge the harm that was caused in the community.
Sure, thanks, Abby. I think it's been a relatively quiet week since, comparing to the things that we've seen so far in 2021. We are at 222 shootings for the year. That is plus 14 from last week. And injury shootings, we're at 57 for the year, and that's plus 4 from last week. And homicides, we had no additional homicides since our last meeting last week, and we're at 15 total for the year. But I think it's important, that we remember that of the fatal or the non-fatal injury shooting victims, 39 of those 57 are Black Hispanic, and that's about 68%. So that's important for us to remember and keep laser focused on. The people that are affected are largely minorities and people of color.
Thank you, Chief. Sheriff Reese, or anybody here from Gresham today for other updates?
Yeah, Abby, it's Mike Reese. I can give a brief update. We had 3 shootings that I wanted to report out on from last week. One, of course, was a deputy and Gresham police officer were involved in a shooting. 60-year-old white male armed with 2 handguns fired on deputies after a long period of negotiations on Saturday. Then Saturday night, we had what we believe is a gang-related shooting in Fairview. 2 people with severe injuries from that shooting, and no one in custody at this point in time. And then the following day, we had another shooting, one in Deep East County at a party. 1 person was arrested in that event. And that's it for us.
Okay, thanks for that. Before I turn over for a moment to Pastor Hennessy, I do want to take just another second, and I really glossed over this the last time we met, but the open letter that was written by several different hands. I've been working in these collaborative spaces for a lot of years, and that was a yeoman's task. It was incredibly hard to find common language that really acknowledged the tension and the challenge of this conversation. And I just want to give a big thank you to those of you who participated in that very hard and also rewarding process. And just give this a moment if there's anything that anybody else wanted to add.
I would simply like to say, Abby, and to the group, beautiful job. Really wonderfully well-rounded, clearly the kind of voice that we need, and in times like these.
I just want to add my thanks to everyone who worked on it. I thought it's really hard to write by group, I know, and I just want to thank everyone because I thought it turned out really nice.
I know I speak for Gina and myself, representing IPAC on the comms committee. Your folks are fabulous. And I know we're saying that it's hard, but this group made it as easy as possible. And it was really a collaborative job well done. Thank you.
With that, Pastor Hennessy, why don't you keep the mic?
Sure, thank you. First of all, I want to say to everybody, as Robert started this out like a revival meeting, and I have to say I was really pleased by how he came into the room, greeting us all and speaking in such victorious tones. I believe that's where we need to be. This collaboration since December may have felt pretty hard to everybody here. But I think what's important for all of us to remember is you are representing the voices who cannot speak for themselves anymore. For the families who are so hurt and crushed and torn down because of the violence that has caused our meeting to be. And so when we take this moment, I want everyone here to recognize how much we all appreciate your showing up for business, your willingness to recognize, despite how you were born, despite how many privileges or not that you've had yourself. Today, we are all brothers and sisters in this. We are working together. We are, and I think it's important, and I know I can say this on behalf of the families, because I've talked to a number of them over the years, is that this is not just a black and brown problem. This is a problem of humanity. And nothing makes the heart of people who have suffered sing more than to know that they are not in this by themselves, that there are people who are white, who are their allies, who care and really want to see a different day. And so I want everyone in this room to remember your work, your presence, your effort is not in vain. And as we take this moment of silence, I want to remind us there are those who cannot speak for themselves, but what we are also doing is preserving the lives of those we pray that will not be impacted by this as a result of our efforts. And I thank you. Let's take a moment. Thank you very much. Thank you, Abby. Thank you to the group for these life-saving moments.
Wonderful. So we had a moment to talk about the gun and violence in the community, and I want to give another opportunity for law enforcement partners, Sheriff's Office, DA's Office, U.S. Attorney's Office, to share any news from the week, anything updates you would like to discuss in terms of policy collaboration, shooting reviews. So that would be Scott, Craig, Sheriff Mike. Anything you'd like to share?
Good morning, everybody. Scott Ospowick here from the U.S. Attorney's Office. Glad to be here this morning. I'm going to turn it over to our subject matter expert, Craig Gabriel, who leads our organized and violent crime section. Craig?
Great. Thanks, Scott. Good morning, everybody. I wanted to give an update on where we are with our Friday afternoon case reviews. Since early January, the DA's office with Mike's leadership and the U.S. Attorney's Office have come together with regional investigators to discuss ongoing priority shooting investigations. This is different from the Thursday afternoon shooting review where we discussed the previous week's shootings. On Friday, we really try to focus on the investigations that are close to being solved or are the most dangerous for our community. And I want to highlight a few things that happened during those Friday afternoon meetings. There is an in-depth discussion of all of the injury shootings and homicides. And it's a strategy meeting. We assign out investigative tasks to regional partners on the most violent incidents that have a high risk of retaliation. And there's a difference here in how we're approaching the investigations compared to several years ago. We are focused on shooting incidents. We are not focused on any particular people. We look at an incident, look at the evidence that we have developed from that incident, and try to solve that shooting. We share intelligence between federal law enforcement partners, state law enforcement partners, and parole and probation are also at the table, which is incredibly important and helpful. Thank you, Erica, for your team's participation. And then we have prosecutors, either from the U.S. Attorney's Office or the DA's office, assigned early in those investigations, because there are legal questions about when we can get a search warrant. There are legal questions about when we've developed probable cause for an arrest that can affect the trajectory of a case months or even years into the future. So having those prosecutors in the room early has proven to be helpful. And then this is a violence interruption model, and it's spearheaded by the DA's office, Special Prosecution and Services Unit. And a shout out to Nathan Vasquez and all the work that he and his team are doing, because it has been exceptional, and they have deputy DAs at the table every Friday afternoon. In terms of the actual number of prosecutions that have been developed from this group, we are planning a status meeting in mid-April, and we will have a 90-day report that we'll be able to share in general terms with this group and with other tables sometime in the next 4 weeks or so. So that's the update from the U.S. Attorney's Office, and we appreciate the community support and our law enforcement partner support for what we're doing. I know those numbers that Chuck went over are very difficult to hear, but both at the table and behind the scenes, a lot of very good work is being done by committed people. So thank you.
Yeah, and I'll pick up from Craig, and Craig, thanks for setting the table and being a great partner with us on this work, as with all law enforcement. And for my office, Nathan Vasquez and the Special Prosecutions Unit, Strategic Prosecutions Unit rather, and Kirsten Snowden, Chief Deputy, are really putting everything that we have into these cases. Staffing them is so crucial, because when people share information, we pick up little pieces of information that can help tie other cases together. And that's what's so crucial about all these meetings and the prosecutors getting together and seeing if we can see themes, connections, and then ultimately make those cases. So they prepared me for this morning. I got the latest data in terms of what's happened in March. And so I can just tell you, from March 1st to 15th, we've got 24 open and issued cases around these gun violence issues. We've had a few pretty major ones. 10 of those involve the crime of felon in possession of a weapon, in possession of a firearm. And so that's something that we continue to really focus on to get guns off the street. But some of these crimes, some of these cases are very serious, involving, using a firearm in the course of rape and human trafficking. But the one I really wanted to highlight for you this morning is one of the cases that, PPB worked, and they were able to get 5 AR-15s off the street off of one person, multiple handguns, ammo, and then something that I'm very concerned about, and other cities across the country are concerned about. We haven't seen it as much here in Portland yet, but they recovered what we call a ghost gun. And a ghost gun is a gun that has no serial number and identification on it. And those guns can be, 3D printed and put together so that we can't trace it or know that there are, no background checks or anything like that ever have to be completed on those types of guns, because we don't know they exist. So I just highlight that because, it isn't something that we've seen a lot of, but it is something I know a lot of cities across the country are dealing with. And there is legislation in the works, and I plan on joining our Attorney General to testify in Salem, trying to close some of the loopholes and make that type of firearm, not legal to have in our community. So that's the update from the DA's office on the cases that we have going in the month of March. But like Craig said, we'll have a more comprehensive view for everybody in the first 90 days of the month coming here in mid-April.
Any questions? Or anything else from any other law enforcement partners before we move on?
I'll just say for my part, I just want to thank everyone for their continued work. I mean, the stakes are high in the work that we're doing now. And, this group has come to the table repeatedly with really the focus on what's happening to people in the community, their safety and their well-being. So I just want to take an opportunity to thank all of you for the work that you've been doing on this, this important but challenging topic.
Abby, I just wanted to speak on behalf of DCJ and the work that we're doing. We continue to meet internally. Like we have talked about, there are a lot of impacts on our caseloads. Our juvenile court counselors, as well as probation and parole officers, are feeling the weight of the impact of the deaths related to people on their caseloads. We're out and about in the field doing home visits, being at as many coordination tables as we can be at. One of the things that we had talked about at this table was doing a call-in session. And based on the heat that is in the streets right now, we've just been advised by our gang unit just to hold off on that for a moment. And maybe it's not off the table, but we want to do it at a later time. So we continue to coordinate on that level within DCJ, and then also seeking ways with the health department to talk about any kind of community engagement that we can do around this.
Thank you. And Erica, I'm going to ask you to keep talking a little bit more. If you would share with the sheriff, and I know Director Clark can't be with us this morning, but about the meetings about East County and the interventions you all are discussing.
Yeah, I think that one is actually, and Sheriff Reese can also add to this as well, is what my understanding was, is we were all talking at this executive level around approaches, responses, and coordination. We really felt like it was important for our operational staff to be coming together. And so that was really the next step, was for our operations folks to come together and talk about what are the gaps and what are the needs. And at this point in time, I don't know, I think that Sheriff Reese will probably have more of an update on that. That's where we left that conversation. So Sheriff, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, thanks, Erica. And I just want to kind of brief the group that we're meeting with at a policy level with the Multnomah County Health Department, thanks to the chair's support, and with DCJ, Erica, myself, and we've decided to work in a pilot fashion, much like we do with our Justice Reinvestment Program, where we've got a policy team that is talking like this at this table, but then we need to have operational people that take our policy discussions and make them real, and do the work of really intervention and prevention of gun violence. And so we're coming together once a month with operational people from all of our offices and departments to hear what they're doing, to make sure that there's good communication and coordination between the health department, DCJ, the sheriff's office, and Gresham Police Department in trying to intervene in the gun violence that's occurring in East County, pilot it there, and see if we can, in some small steps, design a program that then could be expanded upon. And happy to answer any questions about that if anybody has any.
Thanks, Sheriff. Thanks, Erica. All right, moving through our agenda. Community voice engagement oversight. What is an update for today?
So I will say, Abby, as you know, I sent out the plan. We talked about it last week. There's been no additional work since our conversation last week.
To the group this morning, I've sent out, and I may not have gotten to everybody, the plan that came from IPAC to the mayor and council. Many of you may remember that we had a press conference on last week on Thursday. What I didn't mention at the press conference is that we had the funeral service for one of the young men who had been killed on the street, young Shondell DeShazo II, here at our church on the very next day. These are real people with real concerns, and quite frankly, are dealing with some very real hurt and missing the connection for somebody that was so important to them. This plan that we put before and that will be before the city council when they meet, and we've been talking with commissioners, we've been talking with those who have heard about this and are interested in it. There have been family members of those who've been impacted. There have been young people who are demonstrators, peaceful demonstrators on the street, who have also called, and we've talked with them. Many of them are, on the one hand, grateful that this plan is coming before City Council, but we're concerned about the approach that we are taking to community engagement. And I want to take just a moment, Abby, and to the group, to be clear about our approach. I recognize that in these kind of situations, I want to applaud Chief Lavelle and Deputy Chief Davis, both for their belief in the importance of community oversight and their determination to learn from the past and to make sure that as these teams of prevention and engagement, interruption, and accountability are put together with lessons learned. And I am grateful for that, and I am sharing that information with people, and at the same time, letting them know how much I thoroughly appreciate and respect the kind of concern about the radical collaboration that we're speaking of. I will ask Abby, I will make sure that she gets the information in case there are those that are on the call this morning that have not had an opportunity to see the written work. I want to continue just summarizing a few other pieces, and then I'm certainly open for any questions that you may want to ask as well.
Pastor Henry, let me just say that nobody on the city council saw your proposal before your press conference. So I think there's a lot of work to do to have other people be engaged in this. This is not a proposal even I saw prior to your press event, and it was not presented to the people who are supposed to vote on it. So I don't know where this proposal came from, but it was not something that was presented to the people who you are asking to take a vote on it. And that is unfortunate that this is done backwards because of course you got to be able to count to 3 in order to vote for anything on the city council.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. I appreciate that. And first of all, let me just say that I'm sorry that that's the way this is done. I'm sure that there will be more information mentioned from the mayor regarding that, but I certainly hear you, and I know that it's important that we communicate as well as we can in times like these, all times, but certainly in times like these. So I respect what you're saying, and thank you for that.
Yeah, sorry. Did you want me to jump in on this?
Please do, Brother Mary.
Yeah, Commissioner Hardesty's right. This has to be paced in a way that my colleagues feel that they are being brought along and they understand what's going on. And I've met with all of them in the last couple of days, and they have lots of questions. To be clear, they're not saying no or hell no. They have lots of questions. And in particular, they have questions about the role of the Portland Police Bureau and how this is fundamentally different from what has been done previously. And they're particularly interested in community engagement and community support. And the question that a lot of them are going to have is what other community institutions or organizations will support them and stand with them as they cast their vote, if they cast their vote in favor of this proposal. So what I've proposed to my colleagues is to slow this down. I've proposed that we have the Portland Police Bureau in particular, but also Nike meet with each of my colleagues to give them ample time to ask, first of all, present in sequential order what the proposal is, give them an opportunity to evaluate the proposal, ask questions, and each of my commissioners has various groups and constituencies in the community that they want to have the opportunity to interact with and get their feedback and their support. So it's not going to happen as quickly as I think this group had envisioned it might, because there will, this is politically controversial, and therefore my colleagues will need to know that the community is standing with them as they make these decisions. And that is a neutral statement. It's just the reality of what it is. And I believe we should take that time to hear my colleagues and meet with them and make sure that they feel comfortable with the proposal before we ask them to take that vote. I think we can do it relatively quickly. We actually had meetings scheduled yesterday. We postponed those because we weren't quite ready for prime time on the policing side, but it's my understanding that work is now completed or close to completed, and we'll be able to have those meetings this week. So expect a slight delay on this.
Thank you, Brother Mayor, and thank you again, Commissioner Hardesty. So let me say this for the group. I want to be very clear because I don't want you walking out of the room assuming that we didn't communicate, because the fact of the matter is we did. We have spoken to each. When I say we, I'm talking about representatives of IPAC who are Antoinette Edwards and myself. So we have spoken to each of them. We have also made it clear to Commissioner Hardesty, we are open to anything that she would like to do or hear us and address us. And I can certainly say that other groups have not been shy about calling and asking for clarification, of which we have, and we will continue to do. More than anything else, there are two things I think that move me, if I can, in the time that's still ours here. Number one, we must not take our eyes off the ball. While on the one hand, there are groups who are alive who wish to be heard, there are also voices that are stilled as a result of gun violence. Their families do not, many of them do not want to come on camera, but they want to hope that we are willing to really speak for and really represent the lives of their loved ones. And that's important. And quite frankly, as far as we're concerned, that's the most important. The other thing is it's saving lives. Our prayer and our belief is that the plan that we've put forth will save lives as well. And I was, before I was interrupted for a moment, I was talking about the importance of the police and the community working together. Last week, Commissioner Hardesty mentioned a number of different groups, of which have been recommended through the Office of Violence Prevention of the Department of Community Justice and of the department that I'm not sure the name of it, that Director Clark leads as well. Those are important names as far as we're concerned. And we want to make sure that we're working with everybody and answering every question. The second thing that's so important is that we cannot allow history to be our reason to not act. Because the fact of the matter is, our country would not be the country it is if we allowed ourselves to be stymied by the mistakes and the ugliness of what we've done. Our goal in this proposal seeks to move forward and say that while there may have been issues of the past, we are not going to let those issues get in the way, and we're going to learn from what they have been to really create a brighter and better future. The goal here with the community oversight is for the group to be formed by many of what I've said, from the recommendations of the Office of Violence Prevention, Department of Community Justice, and the mental health area, also from families who've been impacted, and certainly people who have been peaceful demonstrators on the street as well. We want to make sure that this is as representative as possible, and that as we move forward, that the group will meet with regularity, with input on who the team is working in law enforcement from both, again, a preventative standpoint, an interruptive standpoint, and also from a standpoint of accountability. And then finally, to be able on a regular basis to come together to both meet and understand the metrics that they put together collaboratively, and also then to report out to groups like this in regularity as well. And so it is our hope, and again, it is our belief that what we have put before the mayor and city council is important and comprehensive and speaks to the issues that are before us, and that we are ready in any way to do our part to both listen and to be good neighbors as we work together to make sure that the lives of people who have been lost is not in vain, and to prevent a number of others from dying on the street as well. Those are my comments. Abby, if Antoinette has anything she'd like to add, and if anybody then would like to ask us questions, or if you have comments, we certainly welcome them. So I'll pause for Antoinette right now.
Video. I'm listening to learn. I'm listening to, it's a lot of language here. And I guess I'm perhaps at a loss. I saw some forward movement, then I hear there's a pause. And I guess I'm trying to, for clarity, where are we right now? We're waiting for city council to have a better understanding of the proposal, or are we at a space that we want to move forward on the community engagement, that forward direction? I guess I'm asking for clarity, and I'm not understanding. I thought we were at a space to move to some direction. So I'm just going to listen. I think the mayor has his hand up, and maybe I'll have a better understanding of where we're at with the community engagement and the forward movement. So I'll pause for that.
Yeah, good. Can I go next, Abby? Because
Of course you can.
I'd like to provide that clarity. And thank you, Antoinette, for putting the question clearly on the table. And thank you, Pastor Hennessy, for reiterating some of the values that bring us together. And I want to be very clear where I am. I'm supportive of the proposal, obviously. I've stood in front of the public, having supported the work on this group now for a couple of months. I'm very supportive of the proposal. But we're actually at the brass tacks phase of this process. And the closer we get to achieving the objective of bringing this proposal forward, the harder it's going to get. And so please don't take this as any signal that there is something wrong here. It's just the process. The process is what the process is. As mayor, I am not an island. I am 1 vote out of 5. I need at least 3 votes. And what my colleagues are saying, to be clear, is they agree that there is a serious problem in the community with homicides, with shootings. My colleagues are very clear that they would like to be supportive of the work that is being done around this table. In fact, I confirmed with 3 of my colleagues yesterday. Commissioner Hardesty and I keep getting sidetracked by other discussions that we're having that are unrelated to this because she and I need to have those other discussions, obviously. But they want to support this, but they need to feel comfortable with what they're supporting. What they're saying is they need more information before they can confidently cast their vote in support of this. But I want to be really clear. I support it. I believe they ultimately will support it, but they need to take the time with themselves, with their teams, with their constituents as they are independently elected officials to be confident in the decision that they are making. And that's going to require more staff work from my team with my colleagues. It's going to require more staff work from the Portland Police Bureau to put a clear and articulate plan on the table in front of them. And I believe that work is either close to done or done at this point. My colleagues are willing to rearrange their schedules to meet with us ASAP in order to they're acknowledging the urgency behind this and the need to move quickly to save lives as quickly as possible. So we're, I don't want anybody to get concerned by the fact that my colleagues are asking questions. You should be concerned if they all come out and say, no and hell no, we don't want to do this. That's not what they're saying. I want to be really clear. I think they want to be supportive. They just need more information and they need to make sure their constituencies are not surprised by this. And they're already making those notifications. Commissioner Hardesty provided us with a community engagement proposal 2 weeks ago that had been, I believe, supported by Erica and by Nike and some others. I think we should expect that they will only support the police part of this, the intervention, the prevention piece, if Chief Lavelle's original requirements are met. And his requirements were that this have community support, that there be an oversight and accountability mechanism, and that there be the collection and transparent reporting of data. And so these pieces need to fit together neatly. But the bottom line for me is I support it. I think my colleagues will support it. We just need to take these few extra days here with my colleagues to make them feel confident in what we are asking them to vote for. I hope that's clarifying, Antoinette.
And I want to say,
I said thank
but-
you.
yeah, good. Go ahead, Antoinette. Sorry.
Thank you. Clear.
Okay. And I want to say, Mr. Mayor, and to everybody here, our conversations with members of City Council have been very constructive, and the issues that have been placed on the table of concern, which I think are fair, and we've tried to answer them in the best and most holistic way. And in addition to that, there are a number of people in the community who are concerned strictly because of past issues regarding policing or law enforcement in general. And I've said to every one of them, I think, as I know that Chief Lavelle would say the same, we appreciate what people are saying. We appreciate people's lived experience. The goal here is to make sure that what we do is very different. What we're proposing and what actually happens is very different than what people may expect.
Yeah, and if I may, and I'm sorry to go out of turn, it's also important that the other jurisdiction leaders who are part of this process acknowledge their support. The City Council is looking for that.
So I want to add a couple of points to this conversation. As I've talked to my colleagues, well, let me just say that Thursday was a hard day to hear that there was a proposal to provide $2 million primarily in new police resources, because it was the day after the City Council had voted for $2 million for a teenager who was killed by a Portland police officer. And so to not have had conversations about what an ask could look like, and then the very next day ask for the same amount of money, it hit me really bad that that happened. I thought the timing really was poor, and it really put people in a defensive place. Let me say that most of my colleagues that I've spoken to are very interested in investing in community programs that are on the ground doing the work already. they have less interest in investing more resources in policing at this moment, based on what we're seeing. And with all due respect, it's not policing of the past, it's current policing and current policing policies. So we can't pretend that all the bad stuff that happened is in the past, because it's not. We're still in the midst of actually doing investigations of all the violence that the police did last summer. Those investigations are still taking place, and me and my colleagues are not immune from that reality. The other issue, and I want to be as clear as possible, is having people lead this effort who have stood with the police in the midst of a racial justice reckoning around police misconduct as it relates to Black people in our community also gives people pause. And I have to be very straight with that and very respectful. I respect both you, Pastor Hennessy and Antoinette Edwards, but you are the only two Black people that stood with Daryl Turner to say you would march with the police at the height of a racial reckoning on police misconduct. And the community hasn't forgotten. We can't talk about the past as if the past is some long time ago.
No,
The past is actually now. And so that's what I'm my constituents after they heard the press conference. And so I just have to tell you, that is the things I'm hearing. There's a lot of support for investing in community programs that are already on the ground. And my hope is to invest directly in those programs. So that's what I'm going to be advocating for with my colleagues. Let's make Healing Hope People a real program. Let's give POIC the dollars they need to really make that a program that we can be proud of. Let's invest with the street outreach workers. Let's give them the resources they need so they can do the job more effectively that we are paying them to do today. So that's kind of where I'm sitting at the moment. And that's the feedback that I'm getting both from community and from my colleagues.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Hardesty. I appreciate that. I want to do two things. Number one, let us not get distracted from what is before us. It is extremely important that we understand this effort more than anything else is to save lives and to recognize those that have been lost already. Secondly, I live my life every day forgiving people for a whole lot of things. I've lived a whole long life of hurt and pain and everything else. And every time I turn around, there are people who want to use stuff from the past against me. And I get up every day walking and talking for the health and the hope of everybody before me. So I know what forgiveness means. And I look to you, as I said to you in this meeting several weeks ago, that it's important for you as a leader to help people move from one place to another. You don't have to defend me, that's fine. I'm fine with defending myself. And Miss Antoinette the same. But here's what we will not do. We will not stop because this issue is extremely important. We do believe in forgiveness. And I give you the best example of forgiveness I've ever seen in my life is for the people at Mother Emanuel who lost 9 of their family. And when they were in the arraignment the next day, for the man that took the lives of their family members, each one of them said, I forgive you. And we need, as leaders of this community, to be the same. Deal with our issues, deal with our conflict, but do not marginalize each other's humanity, but work together to say tomorrow is another day and somebody else's life and their circumstance is greater than our own. So I thank you for sharing that, but I want to be real clear. We need to move forward. And I appreciate and respect you, your colleagues, and the rest of the groups who are asking questions, and we are here to answer those questions. So I live in forgiveness. I look to people to do the same.
Abby, can I say a word?
Hold on. I need to step in. Robert, sorry, I appreciate you. You put me in a better mood this morning. We are coming up on time. Gina had her hand up. I know Antoinette wants to respond. Robert, if you have a burning matter that can't wait, I encourage you to lean in now. We have very limited time to finish this. I'm sure we all have a hard stop at 9 o'clock. Really want to think about what conversations should happen here Wednesday mornings and what conversations can be perhaps more effective, more challenging, more dynamic in a smaller, non-38 participant type meeting, because this is some hard stuff. And I want to just really think about when, who, how, and why, and also to get through our next 11 minutes. So Robert, is this a burning matter you need to get in right now?
Abby, in the sense that I just want to say for the group, this is our process, you know, in our city, in our community, in our county, in our government. And it's how we make decisions about what to do, how to allocate resources. And the conversation has been robust for some period of time. And there are many different perspectives and opinions, obviously, on this issue, and strongly held, some for, some against. And I just want everybody on the call to know, especially in your key leadership roles as opinion leaders and as leaders in your various organizations, these decisions are not easy and are going to be made one way or another. I'm grateful for the city of Portland and our city council, and I'm grateful for all of the conversations that happen in that context back and forth. What I would ask everybody on the call to do, as we've all leaned in, is, you know, make your voices known to the various city commissioners so that they know and understand and are fully informed, because they, the mayor, Commissioner Hardesty, the other city commissioners, they're making very difficult choices about all sorts of matters that all have trade-offs. And it has to do with the allocation of resources and best practice and fairness and equity in our community. So that's my just encouragement to the group. These conversations are so critical and so important for us as a community. And I'm just grateful and appreciative of the mayor and his leadership in all this, and Commissioner Hardesty for what she's holding out and the space she's holding and representing. So I'm just in support of, there's always tension that comes, which I'm grateful for, because this is not easy and it's significant and it's substantial. But please do, in your various roles in the coming days, make your voices heard to the other city commissioners so that they can make a fully informed and fair final decision in this matter. I just wanted to share that perspective with the group, because that's really what we're about here, the legitimacy of decision-making and government in the best interests of our community. That's what makes me proud to be a Portlander.
Gina and Antoinette, which one of you is feeling ready? Gina.
Thank you. I'd like to address not only Commissioner Hardesty, but the group in general. So one thing that I'll just speak out, when I don't appreciate being labeled a police apologist, I'm just going to call it out right now. I've stayed kind of silent in the background on this because I just haven't known when it might be my place to share. But I'm an activist, Commissioner Hardesty. I've been on the street for many, many years, and I actually tend to lean with the radical left on there. So I'm real familiar with your constituency, and I'm real familiar with the anger and the righteous rage about deaths on the regarding police force and police brutality. So I'm just going to make it real clear. I'm not a police apologist at all. However, I am a radical advocate for restorative justice, which is not kumbaya. It is about humanizing sides so that we can stop cycles of violence. And so one of the reasons why I think we're at an impasse right now is that currently the proposal that was brought forward for the community engagement piece did not reflect certain values that IPAC from the very beginning came forward and said, we are open to any and all ideas, providing that certain overarching principles are there. And I think it's really important that we call out some of the deep emotions, the righteous rage that with unresolved issues regarding police accountability. Joanne Hardesty is correct. There are issues currently still happening. There are police officers who have not been brought to justice regarding excessive use of force. That's real, that's happening. The question is not around whether or not those cases are real or whether or not accountability should happen. We're united in that belief. Where we differ is in the approach on how to get there. And I think it's also really important that we do not confuse revenge with accountability, and that if folks are interested in restorative justice and what the real hard work of repairing community looks like and what accountability looks like, it looks like building bridges with those that you perceive as your enemy. And that's real hard work to do. But I have spent over 10 years in a prison working with people who have committed some of the most atrocious crimes. And as a survivor of family violence, as a survivor of violence myself, to work with people that have caused myself harm and others harm is one of the most difficult journeys that I've had to make. And what IPAC is doing at this time is we are asking you and the community and the other city officials to be willing to embark on a journey. I keep hearing people state that we need to take a different approach to police accountability than we have in the past. Well, continually having adversarial approaches is nothing new. In fact, that's status quo. So if we want to make a change, if we want to do something different, we are going to have to approach peacemaking and accountability from an entirely different lens. And I say this not to preach, but to say that it feels extremely invalidating and dehumanizing to be labeled a name like a police apologist, because it invalidates the experiences and feelings that we have. And it's just not helpful. Like, I'm going to be honest, like I've been watching city council meetings, and I've been watching the different ways some of you all engage with each other. And I'm going to be real blunt. It's terrible. I'm just going to call it out. It's people have been talking about it behind the scenes, but name calling and making things really personal doesn't help get us to where we need to go at all. It's unprofessional. And I just feel that it's disrespectful to the people who are dying on the street. And I think we don't have to agree on everything. And I think that we need to be working just from a radically different place. And so I think moving forward, Mayor, I just want to say that I completely understand where you're coming from regarding people need to be on the same page before they're able to make a decision they feel comfortable with. But the one thing I would ask is to please make space for us to also clarify how these principles of restorativeness would work in practice. I don't feel that IPAC and folks that are pursuing this particular approach on behalf of the commissioner, I don't think that we're being given a voice to collaborate from the beginning, right? I feel like we've been kind of left off to the side, and we're not saying that we want our voice to overpower others. What we're saying is we want a seat at the table. And the reality is that from the beginning of the community engagement piece, we weren't invited to that discussion. So I'm just going to leave it there. I really thank you for your time.
Thank you, Gina. You know, Sister City Council, you went low, but I'm going to go high. I'm not going to be distracted from the urgency of this call, of this crisis and this time. And Gina said it all. I'm not apologizing. I will work with anybody to do right. And we're here because we care. And this negative energy, I'm not going to be deterred by it. But to say what you said was disrespectful. I won't wait for an apology. I don't need one. I'm just going to keep it moving because there's too much at stake here and too much good work to be done. And I am grateful for the opportunity to show up and to do it and to not be deterred by anybody's negative energy. It's about moving on. This is about reimagining public safety and working with everybody. And you continue to come to this table and disregard the people that are sitting here that are committed to doing this work. Thank you.
Let me just say that I'm sharing information that I am receiving. If I disrespected anyone, that was never my intent. My intent, I thought this was a table where we were open and honest about what we are hearing, about what's happening on our street. I am sharing information that I received. If people are taking it personal, please, forgive me, because that was not my intent. My intent is to be open and transparent about what I'm hearing and what I'm deliberating on. The fact that I did not get IPAC's proposal until after the mayor's press conference doesn't say to me that we're collaborating. It says to me that somebody put together a funding proposal with outside of this group And then it was a press conference to talk about it. That's what happened. And I shared the feedback that I received. If asking questions is perceived as a negative energy, then that's the exact same problem that I've been having with the police bureau for the last 30 years. Because the reality is that we have to question everything. I'm not here to just be a rubber stamp. I am here to share with you the information I receive from my constituents. And I am here to work with you in ways that we can work together. So I don't know why this perception of somehow I bring that negative energy. I bring the reality of the constituents that I work with everywhere I go. I can't leave them at home. So that's why I'm here.
Commissioner, I think the heart of the matter is when you make statements like we are police apologists, I just want to be real clear. And I think Gina did it already, is that we are here because the community matters to us. And this chief and the last 6 or 7 that I've worked with will let you know that when that there are too many times, and you and I have already had this offline, but I want to say for the group that that's not who we are, that what matters most to us is what's best for our community. And I would just ask at some point a way for, because Abby mentioned to me, there's no mechanism for us to show support or whatever. Commander King has mentioned that if you have comments or whatever, let's figure out a way to get that information to the mayor and to the city council. I want to thank you, Abby. I know we've taken a lot of time and I'm grateful for it. I think this is why we're here, and I'm grateful that we are here today and that we can have as frank a conversation as we've had today. Thank you so much.
Mayor Wheeler, and then I'll close this up.
I'll be brief. First of all, thank you all for this conversation. It's anything but boring, I just want to say. This is an important conversation, and I'm glad we're having it. I'm glad we all know each other well enough that we can be frank, and we will walk away from the table. We'll all consider it, and we'll all come back to the table. So that's a positive thing. I just want to say this. It's very important that the city council hear from somebody other than just me. They know where I am on this, but they also know I'm the police commissioner. And so my voice alone is not enough, I don't think, to give them the confidence they need to have, that they have expressed that they need to have in order to support this proposal. It's very important that other voices be heard as well. And I would argue, not to embarrass anybody or call anybody out, but 2 of the most influential voices to this city council are District Attorney Schmidt and Chair Kafoury. And hearing from the DA, hearing from the chair, that they are supportive of these actions and supportive of this proposal and will publicly back them would go a long way. That's not to in any way tell any of you other folks on this call that your voice doesn't matter. It absolutely does, because the community's voice is paramount. But the way city councils work, the way elected officials work, is they look to their colleagues that they respect for some guidance and leadership on important and somewhat controversial issues like this. So I'd really encourage people to reach out, all of you, if you support this proposal, to my commissioners. They would love to hear your perspective.
Abby, if I could add one quick thing before we hang up. Mayor, Blackmail Town Hall, you may remember a couple of meetings ago, you said you would not move a funding proposal before you heard directly from the people most impacted. That Blackmail Town Hall happens on March 30th. And I think it's important that you keep your word to that we have that Blackmail Town Hall, and then we move forward a funding proposal.
I reserve the right as the commissioner in charge to allocate resources internally, as always.
As always.
But I hear your larger point, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Good, hard conversation today. I would like to recommend that we meet again on Wednesday, the 31st. after some of these conversations can blossom and get a little more intimate and a little bit smaller, and then hopefully come back with a recommendation or direction. And just to clarify what the pastor recommended or indicated is, this group, I think, can raise hands and recommend and make ideas, but we don't have a voting structure. Like, something doesn't get quote unquote approved through this body. We haven't figured out whether there's leadership or decision-making power here. We are here to come together to collaborate and discuss. So if there's desire for that, that's another matter. Thank you all. Unless I hear otherwise, I'm sure I'll hear from many of you offline. I'll see you all in 2 weeks. Thanks so much.